Report on Bermuda's crime statistics for the year ending 31st of December 2011. And I think we've had enough time over the last 3 years, if you think about the spike in gun crime really occurring around May of 2009, rather than try to compare month to month and quarter to quarter on crime stats, we've got 2 or 3 years of data now to look at and have some confidence in terms of what the trends are and the messages that are coming out of that. In terms of an overview, 2011 saw the lowest recorded crime figures since comparative records were kept in 2000. With total crimes at 4,371, that's a decrease of 4.5% on 2010, which is an average of about 12 crimes a day. Crimes were actually reduced across 3 of the 4 major categories. Crimes against the person down by 10.3%, firearms incidents overall down by 37%, in terms of firearms injuries and fatalities down by 55%. Crimes against the community down by 13%, and in terms of crimes against property, they more or less stayed the same. There was actually a reduction by 3. Now, although the overall figure in crimes against the person is reduced, the headlines also include that there were 8 murders in 2011, and of course that's 1 more than what was recorded in 2010. 5 murders were firearms related, and 3 persons so far have been charged in connection with those crimes. Now, if we look a little bit closer at each of the major categories, starting with what's on everyone's mind usually, is firearms. The final quarter of 2011 ended up actually being the busiest period for the year for firearms incidents, with 14 confirmed and 25 unconfirmed incidents. That included 5 persons being shot and injured, but with no fatalities. This makes the yearly total 5 firearms-related murders and 11 firearms injuries. These 16 shootings represent a reduction of 55% compared with 2010. A steady and encouraging flow of community intelligence resulted in the recovery of 11 illegal firearms and a substantial amount of ammunition during the year. Now, since 2009, with the spike in gun violence, 28 cases have now gone to trial. That has resulted in 21 guilty verdicts and a conviction rate of 75%. That's 3 out of 4. That is clear evidence of the joined-up efforts of law enforcement, prosecution, and community support. Sentences have ranged from 5 to 38 years of imprisonment. And so far in 2012, another 3 cases have ended up with convictions, and 9 cases are currently awaiting trial. 4,450 arrests were made in 2011. That's a slight decrease from the previous year, down by about 10.7%. And of those arrested, 22 people were arrested for murder, 51 for firearms offenses, and 118 were arrested for residential burglaries. And still, about half of all of our arrests continue to relate to court-issued warrants. The police conducted 17,429 stop and searches in 2011. That is an increase of 82% over the previous year. But there is a direct correlation between increased enforcement levels and decreased crime levels. And I think that's borne out in the evidence of this year and last year's crime figures. Now, interestingly, there's also been a drop-off in the use of stop and search by the police that correlates with the reduction in gun crime. But a spike in firearms incidents in the 4th quarter of 2011 means we certainly will not be taking our foot off the gas with the use of stop and search powers as an effective tool against gang suppression. And I've included in the speaking notes there a graph that you don't have in your other handout. That just lays the stop and searches over the firearms incidents. Drug seizures in 2011 were once again significant, with a total of 351 kilograms of controlled drugs being recovered during the year, with an estimated street value of over $52 million. Interdiction at the ports of entry by the Customs Department accounted for about 87% of the total value of drug seizures. The seizure of 180 kilograms of cocaine is also exceptional and represents increased maritime interdictions with our customs partners and our overseas agency partners. Bermuda recorded 9 fatal road traffic collisions in 2011. That number is still tragic, but it actually represents the lowest recorded number since 2004. There was an average of 38 traffic collisions per week in 2011, which is quite a significant reduction from about 58 collisions per week in 2007. The total for the year was 1,955, and that's a 13.4% reduction in accidents over 2010. Once again, calls for service to the police have increased exponentially to 42,448. That's 116 calls every day. That's 2,000 more than in 2010, and it's the highest that we've ever recorded. It's still about 3 or 4 times more than other similar sized jurisdictions like the Cayman Islands. And to sort of end the briefing on an extremely positive note, we are very encouraged by the results in the Bermuda Omnibus Survey in the fourth quarter of 2011 that show overall satisfaction with the police service has increased significantly, with 2/3 of residents now expressing complete satisfaction with the service, 66%, and another 25% expressing satisfaction. You add those two numbers together and you get a combined total of 91%, which is the highest in the last 3 years. Conversely, 9% of residents expressed dissatisfaction with the police, and that is also the lowest in 3 years. Thank you.
You take a question?
Yes?
Commissioner, I just have 2 questions. The 11 firearms seized, is that the highest in recent years, and what do you think that is?
Yes, it's about one more than 2010. It's twofold. One is some lucky breaks on investigations, and one is community intelligence, where people are picking up the telephone and using various methods, Crime Stoppers and the likes, to tip us off, and we've been able to follow up the information and come across some of the guns.
And when you say intelligence, would that intelligence include the fact that it's pretty much known in some circles that so-called gunmen are using their girlfriends to hide weapons?
There's no shortage of creativity in terms of hiding them, carrying them, and getting them from one place to the other, and that's why every chance I get, I make the plea that it really does come down to people telling us what they know, because that's the tidbits that lead us on the trail.
You think people are more forthcoming now?
Absolutely, no question.
Okay, and the calls, 116 per day, it's higher than the Caymans. Caymans is more populated than us. Why do you think that is? So many calls. What does that indicate to you?
It indicates, it can indicate one of 2 things. If the crime rate was higher than it is, it would suggest that people are calling to complain about crimes, but crime is actually at the lowest rate, so it doesn't make any sense that we're getting extra calls. So I have to put it down to public confidence. People call the police because they think that we can help, and I think that's borne out in the public satisfaction survey.
And
that's the biggest shift that I think has happened in the last 3 years.
And just moving forward, I take it you'll continue this widespread search for guns. You're not going to ease up, and you're putting people on notice that the police are with that, yes?
I think that the message to the community would be, this is a lull, clearly, and I don't want to put my mouth on it, and then tomorrow we have something tragic. There has clearly been a lull in firearms crime. Now is not the time to ease up on law enforcement, and we don't plan to. But now is also the time to increase the activity around community interventions, community programs, and all the other things that are needed at the front end of this problem to make a difference.
So if you had to attribute the cause of the law, you think the message is getting through?
I think
The gunmen?
yeah, you're seeing a combination of different things. You're seeing a community that's coming together and saying, you know, gangs just don't work here. We are not putting up with this. You're seeing law enforcement heat that's being applied like never before. And you're seeing cross-agency cooperation, whether it's government, private sector, health agencies, just more galvanization and more cooperation across the entire spectrum.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Yes, please. I presume that you're hoping that this extraordinary success doesn't translate into complacency on the behalf of those who provide you with the funds.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I hope it goes without saying, but perhaps it doesn't hurt just to add the two biggest lessons that Bermuda has learned from where I sit in the last 3 years is, while there's a lot that you can do around enforcement, you cannot enforce your way, you cannot arrest your way out of this gang problem. But similarly, you can't legislate your way out of the problem either. So the answer really lies in the front end community work. And we're seeing more and more examples of that every day in the media, and I think the Bermuda community gets it, and I think it shows in the results.
Commissioner, I have a question, a personal question to you. What year were you taken over as the commissioner?
Feels like about 10 years ago, but it was actually December 2009.
And that was one of the lowest years of morale, the confidence that the Bermuda, the people have reference to all these murders. How do you feel personally that things have turned around under your watch?
Well, I'm very encouraged by that. I don't take all the credit personally, because I'm just, you know, the person that brings the teams together and comes up with a couple of ideas and they run with it. But I think the wider message for the community is, look what happens when we all get together and put our efforts in the same direction. These are not police results, these are Bermuda community results.